Let me tell you something nobody in HR is going to say out loud. For most of my 25-year career, we were not hiring people, we were hiring job titles: data analysts, project managers, systems engineers. We were not asking what problems needed to be solved and who the best people were to solve them. We were filling boxes on an org chart. And candidates, they played right along. They applied for titles, they wrote resumes full of tasks, and we collectively agreed to pretend that we had a hiring strategy. It was not a strategy. And now that bill is coming due. Between 2020 and 2022, tech companies overhired aggressively, irrationally in some cases. Some of them doubled their headcount in 18 months, chasing growth that was never going to be permanent. And then AI and automation pulled back the curtain and exposed every redundancy that they had built in. Here is a number that should stop you cold. According to the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, 40% of employers worldwide are expected to reduce their workforce in the next 5 years because of AI automation. 40%. And a global enterprise survey found that 66% of companies are already cutting entry level hiring, not planning to cut, already cutting it. And we've been seeing it. This is not a blip. This is a structural shift, and the people caught in the middle are not the ones who lack talent. They are the ones who never learned how to articulate what they actually bring to the table. Here is what I need you to hear. The layoffs exposed something that was already true. Most people cannot clearly articulate what makes them valuable, not because they're not valuable, but because no one ever taught them how. We spent decades applying for jobs based on titles and vibes and thinking that our experience would speak for itself. It does not speak for itself, and it never did. As of right now, today, the average time to hire has stretched to 44 days. That is up from 31 days just a few years ago, a 42% increase. You know what that tells me? It tells me that companies are not hiring less carefully, but that they're hiring more carefully. They're sitting on roles longer because they cannot afford to get it wrong. And when a hiring manager is reviewing hundreds of applications, the person who can precisely name the problem that they need to have solved and the impact of solving that problem is the one who becomes the most memorable. They're the only person in the pile who actually answered the question that was being asked. I sat at the executive level for over 2 decades. I watched how decisions got made, and I can tell you that the conversations have fundamentally shifted. Employers are not asking who has the best resume anymore. They're asking, what problem do I need solved and who has the evidence that they can solve it? Which is why I believe wholeheartedly that your career should be anchored in expertise. Being a subject matter expert is being able to go deep in a subject is way more important to employers right now, especially these days. PwC analyzed nearly a billion job postings across 6 continents, and they found that skills in AI exposed roles are evolving 66% faster than other jobs. 66% faster, which means if you are still presenting yourself in the same way you did 3 years ago, you are already behind. But the good news is that same research found a 43% wage increase for workers who can demonstrate the right skills, even in the most automatable roles. The market is not punishing people, it's rewarding clarity. People who know what they bring and can name it precisely are getting paid more, not because the world got easier, but because it got specific. After 25 years of watching how companies hire and how people get it wrong, I believe most of us fall into 3 natural skills categories. I call these your skills signal. This is not a personality test. This is not a vibe check. This is the thing you do naturally in any environment, under any amount of pressure, that creates real organizational value. The first one is called a systems builder. You create order out of complexity. In every team you have ever been a part of, you were the person who made the chaos functional. The processes, the structure, the operating models that everyone else relied on without knowing who built them. You've been calling it being organized your whole life. It is not. It is infrastructure. And most organizations are desperately underpaying for it. The next one is a people builder. Your natural medium is other people, not in a surface social kind of way, but at a level of development, trust, and influence. You are the manager people still thank after 5 years. You're the colleague that changed how someone saw themselves. You have spent your whole career being told that you need to be more strategic, you need to be more technical, you need to be more analytical. What you actually are is extraordinarily rare because human capability is the thing every organization says is their priority, and almost no one can actually develop it. And then there's the execution driver. You turn strategy into reality. When a plan stalls, when a project loses shape, when everyone agrees on a destination but no one is moving, that is when you become essential. You've been calling yourself a get things done kind of person. You are not. You close the gap between strategy and what actually happens. And that gap is the single most common and most expensive organizational failure in existence. These are your skills signal. No environment can take them away. No layoff can make them expire. They are yours. And knowing your signal changes everything about how you show up. Instead of walking into an interview and listing your job history, you walk in and identify the specific problem that that organization is having. Then you tell them exactly how your signal solves it. Then you describe the impact of the problem being solved. Time saved, revenue generated, processes that stop things from breaking. That is what employers are hiring for right now. Not titles, not tenure, but impact, specificity, and evidence. Companies are still hiring, and they're hiring more than we imagine. There are 500,000 active job postings in tech alone right now. Those companies are looking for people who can walk in and say, I know what you need, and I am that person that can deliver it. That is not arrogance, that is preparation. And most of your competition cannot do that. I was laid off April of 2024, and I spent 25 years in HR. I was the person who sat across the table. I saw how the decisions were made. I fought for people's dignity and belonging for my entire career. And then one day, I was on the other side of that table. And I will tell you something, even knowing everything that I know, even having spent decades inside the system, the first thing that happened was I lost my sense of direction. Not because my skills disappeared, but because no one, not even me, had ever given me a clear language for what I actually brought to the table. That's why I built Skills Signal, not as a resume tool, not as a job board, but as a way for people to finally see themselves clearly before they walk into that next room, do an interview, and undersell themselves again. Skills Signal is an 8-minute assessment. That's it, just 8 minutes. And on the other side of those 8 minutes, you will walk away with a clarity map, your value articulation, the exact language for how you talk about what you bring into an interview or a negotiation, the environments where you will thrive, and the ones that'll make you feel invisible and that have red flags. And you'll also get the specific roles that align with who you actually are. You've been applying for jobs all along. Now start applying as your natural self. The link is in the description. Take the 8-minute assessment. Take the 8 minutes. You owe it to yourself to have the language to explain what your skills signals are. Good luck.